I have an old family story, which had a lot of ambiguity. The story was told by cousins. I would ask my sister and my cousins, but we'd always have different answers. So in the year 2001, I decided to do a little investigation. I went to Columbia. That's Columbia, Missouri, not Columbia. Southwestern. And to investigate, I went to the, in Columbia, we have the university, or excuse me, Missouri University has a vast collection of old newspapers. And also this story took place in that area. And I was able to visit different places where this story took place. And I'll begin with John Butler. John was my second great-grandfather, my great-great-grandfather, born in 1825. When he was 2 years old, his family moved from Ireland to New York City. His sister was born there. They soon moved upstate, where John eventually grew up, married a lady by the name of Jane Gordon, who also was from Ireland. And John was very, very restless. He went to California for the gold rush. He probably had to have passed through Missouri. That was really the jumping off spot for people who went to California, and they walked. They didn't ride in the covered wagons. All their stuff went in the covered wagons. They walked. And when he came back, he decided to move his family from New York to Missouri, to an area just above Columbia, known as Persia. Is the way that's pronounced by the locals. It's really spelled P-E-R-C-H-E. Just recently I found out how they say it, Persia. John was a restless guy. He was well known for having a violent temper. He was very intolerant. He didn't have much patience. He had seismic mood swings. Jane, very Irish, Jane was a drinker. John didn't put up with that. John, in 1859, John savagely, brutally beat his pregnant wife, Jane, who was in her 9th month of pregnancy. She tried to walk to the nearest town. Some people from the town, some townspeople found her, took her into town. She gave birth to a baby girl. Jane stayed in that town for about a year, and within 7 miles of where John lived. And they never saw each other again the rest of their lives, never saw each other. The Civil War eventually broke out. Missouri was chaotic. There were no really famous battles, but people were fighting all the time. People were killing each other. Neighbors were killing each other by their beliefs. John took his family back to New York. Jane continued to wander. We kind of lose track of Jane. John comes back to the area in Missouri where he's living, to Persia, and he begins to amass massive amounts of land. He's really a great businessman. He buys land with trees, he cuts them down, he makes lumber, he has a lumber mill, he makes a lot of money, he has manufacturing businesses. Eventually he dies in 1906. But let me jump back, something that I had passed my mind. When he did come back after the Civil War, he remarried. And the marriage didn't last very long. There was a divorce. He had not divorced the first wife, but he married again, or divorced. He married again the third time. He married a local woman who was quite a bit younger than he was. He had children with her. She died as a young woman. He had to have someone to take care of the children. A sister in New York arranged a marriage with a lady by the name of Mary Fitzsimmons, who married him, went to Missouri to live with him, take care of the children. In 1906, John died. He was 81 years old. John, with his fortune, willed everything to Mary. Upon Mary's death, the land, all these thousands of acres, would pass on mostly to the children of the third family. And the original 3 children, which I might have forgotten to mention, he had 3 children with Jane, had died as young adults, but they had children. And those children were grandchildren of John. But they got the short end of the stick. The third family got the good land, and these grandchildren, who were really his first children, the children of his first children rather, didn't really get much. They were very unhappy about this. They hired a lawyer, because they had this in their mind that daughter that was born was still alive. She would be an heir that would just really turn things around. So they hired a lawyer who put an ad in the Paris, Missouri newspaper, and I'll pass this ad around, looking for a lady. They almost had her name. They called her Libby Butler, or Libby, other name, Libby Caledonia, had several names. They had the years were kind of off. But they found immediately when this ad came out in Paris, these people knew who it was. It was a lady by the name of Lizzie Vantine. She was 47 years old, a grandmother. She was living in Illinois by then. Most of her children had already moved to Los Angeles. There was a trial, a very, very remarkable trial, lots of publicity. Newspapers, I spent a week there reading newspapers, making copies, visiting places. The lawyers had developed this fantastic case, like they built a building, a high-story building, high-rise, with a strong foundation, with a description of Lizzie, and then they layered it with all these witnesses. They had 60 witnesses. The defense, the people that she was suing, the heirs who were going to get most of the property, had no one. Their lawyers were going to try to win on a technicality. First, they brought the witnesses in from Persia, where this event had occurred, Persia, north of Columbia. How they described Jane as an Irish woman, dark hair, quite stout. She had this really visible scar on her arm. Then the witnesses from Paris told about the lady who had arrived in a stagecoach from Mexico. That's Mexico, Missouri. And she fit the same description. She had a little 3 or 4-year-old girl with her. She eventually gave that child up for adoption. And this turned out to be Lizzie Vantine. It was my great-grandmother. Lizzie, remember in those days there was no blood tests, there was no DNA. The court ruled in favor of Lizzie. She won, vast amount of the estate, took her money, moved to Los Angeles with her children, and that's my story. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much.